Today we will be discussing exactly how to navigate Southern Asia's business environment, more specifically touching on the following subjects: religion and business, keys to communication, greetings and body language, timeliness, hierarchy, gift giving and etiquette, and then our conclusion. We feel as if these are some of the most important topics to be discussed as a foreigner who is going to be trying to make a good initial impression and also remain culturally respective to the native land. The countries we will be discussing include India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. Before beginning the analysis and background on how to conduct the overview of the three assigned countries within the Southern Asian market, we must first know what countries make up the entirety of the market and some of the perks along with it.
As mentioned, the integration efforts of countries in Southeast Asia have created a regional free trade market. This regional group is one of the world's leading emerging markets according to the U.S. Department of Commerce. Although it is smaller in size and less impressive in overall economic achievement, it is larger, richer, and moving faster toward trade liberalization than either India or China. Additionally, the size of the population has created one of the biggest consumer markets in the world. As part of efforts to attract foreign direct investment, some ASEAN countries provide favorable investment conditions. For instance, Brunei allows 100% foreign equity ownership in high technology manufacturing and export-oriented industries. Indonesia has dramatically reduced the processing time for the approval of foreign investments of less than $100 million. Singapore has reduced business costs and corporate income tax. Laos now provides some duty exemption for select capital goods. In addition to these individual actions, the member countries make considerable efforts to promote the area as a single investment region to provide more synergy for multinational companies. In Burma, the economic and human rights reforms of 2011 stand as signs that the country's markets and vast resources will soon be available to foreign investors as well. The northern frontier of Vietnam, Laos, Burma, and Cambodia has just opened to the outside market, providing great potential for international business. In addition, the existing
Alright, and so our countries of interest today will include Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, which can be seen above in the map. All three are crucial players when conducting business in the market, with India offering the most opportunities due to strong technical advancements in recent years, as well as such a dynamic and high-volume population of people. Religion plays a key role in international business affairs in South Asia. First, because it can determine common business practices such as how and when business is done. And second, not recognizing the role of religion plays and respecting it can lead to team conflict, scheduling issues, and lack of harmony among the team. In India, the religious practices of Hinduism are necessary to facilitate business matters. There are numerous holidays that should be observed, including Mahashivarti, Ram Navami, and Janmashtami, to ensure that there are not any scheduling conflicts. From an economic standpoint, Hinduism doesn't focus on material possessions, which tends to go against what Westerners are striving for in the business world. Without a clear understanding of this, it can cause major conflict. Moving on to both Pakistan and Bangladesh, they primarily practice Islam in both of these countries. Westerners need to respect and appreciate the degree that religion and Islamic law are entangled with society, including business practices. It is imperative that Western cultures understand that laws are derived from divine demand, and business protocols will encompass those beliefs to a high degree. For instance, meetings will be planned around the 5 daily prayer times. If a Western executive must schedule a meeting, they need to be aware of those typical prayer times and specific holidays such as Ramadan, to ensure that there is no conflict. Having a clear understanding of both of these countries will make it easier to conduct business. One of the single most important attributes of business is communication. When conducting business in a foreign nation, communication is vital to the success of the transaction. Communication differs between foreign countries, and what is acceptable in one may not be acceptable in another. It encompasses verbal and nonverbal communication, as well as simple greetings and traditions particular to that culture. Within Pakistan, the Pakistani culture puts a strong emphasis on relationships and building those relationships. Pakistanis are indirect communicators and try to avoid confrontation, which is part of the reason that they spend a great deal of time getting to know a person in order to build trust prior to their relationship. This trust is vital to building successful business relationships and avoiding conflict in Pakistan. When a person is conversing with someone from Pakistani culture, they must speak in a non-controversial manner, using words like "I will try" as opposed to "I cannot." Pakistanis will also often ask very personal questions and do not believe in personal space. To accommodate this trait, people from other cultures should not back away, regardless of how uncomfortable it may be or what question is asked. This can result in offending the Pakistani culture. Because silence is often used in this culture, it is important as a foreigner to ask questions to assert that you understand a vague response. Pakistanis also prefer to do business in person versus the telephone. This is indicative of the personal relationship quality that is important to Pakistanis. In India, communication shares some of the same traits as Pakistan's culture. They also focus on interaction and communication in order to build successful working relationships. For the Indian culture, everything takes time and they do not like to rush processes, especially building relationships. They will often keep in touch with business counterparts in between business meetings. As with the Pakistani culture, the Indian culture prefers face-to-face rapport. Moving on to Bangladesh, Bangladeshi culture also shares some of the same characteristics of the Pakistan and Indian cultures. They do not like confrontation and will avoid assertions and strongly worded statements. Because of their indirect communication style, one must pay attention to the body language of the speaker for the verbal communication to make sense. At times, their communications can appear rude and lacking adequate information. It's important to ask questions in this culture as well to understand what is being discussed. If there isn't a clear understanding of what is being communicated, it will result in conflict and ultimately bad business transactions. As with the Pakistani culture, Bangladeshis also stand in close proximity to each other and touching is common. Moving on to greetings and body language. In a typical business setting among Western culture, handshakes are usually how an initial greeting begins. However, in Bangladesh and Pakistan, these are both common and acceptable forms of greeting another man. Handshake is also acceptable in India, but Namaste is also common, which is a bowing motion with both hands put together. Women and men typically interact differently than women to women in all three of these different countries. Men typically do not touch women at all during a greeting. In Bangladesh, men should nod to a woman unless she extends her hand for a handshake first. However, when it is a woman to a woman meeting, a hug or a kiss is acceptable and is much more similar to Western culture. Obeying and following all these initial greeting cues are crucial in order to set a strong tone and not offend the parties you will be dealing with initially. Hand gestures can be difficult to interpret across cultures, but are also extremely important when trying to make a good first impression. Some gestures can be extremely offensive. For example, slapping someone on the back in the United States is indicative of a good job, while in Pakistan it is something law officials do to criminals when they're being arrested. Another gesture that is popular is pointing with the index finger, but in Bangladesh this is seen as offensive, and a movement of the chin should be used to point in a direction if directional cues are needed. The use of the left and right hands within India and Pakistani culture is also important when in a meeting or dinner conducting business. The right hand is only supposed to be used in order to pass objects, handle money, or eat food, while the left hand is vastly considered to be unclean and is used for cleaning and removal of dirt or garbage. Eye contact is an integral part of the business communications. In the United States, maintaining eye contact is expected and encouraged, but in some South Asian cultures, the opposite holds true. For example, In Pakistan, it is considered rude to look someone directly in the eyes. This is suggestive of arrogance, while lowering one's gaze is a sign of respect. In Bangladesh, eye contact holds the opposite implication. Eye contact is held during conversation and is encouraged as this acts as a sign of sincerity. The Bangladesh idea of eye contact is much more in tune with the American concept. The Indian culture is somewhere in the middle of Pakistan and Bangladesh cultures regarding appropriate eye contact. Direct eye contact is generally appropriate so long as you divert your gaze every so often. Only when dealing with the opposite gender is it appropriate to maintain eye contact in the Indian culture. We will now move on to timeliness. In the Indian culture, everything takes time and there is no rush to complete tasks. This can be initially frustrating for Western visitors, but to conduct good business, Westerners need to learn to be patient and slow down. Time is not always of the essence, and Indians live more in the moment than being in a rush with everything, such as their American counterparts. In Bangladesh, it is appropriate to arrive to meetings on time, but do not expect them to begin on time. Often, business people will be waiting for their Bangladeshi counterparts to arrive prior to the meeting starting. As opposed to America, where times are set to adhere to a schedule, in Bangladesh they merely serve as a guideline. Bangladeshis feel the overall goal of the meeting takes precedent over the timeliness of the meeting. So more often than not, you find yourself waiting for your Bangladeshi counterparts, and the meeting is used to serve as a guideline, but not a strict deadline, as it does in America. The Pakistani culture is also very lax about deadlines and punctuality, and will often arrive late to meetings and events. Deadlines are used as a guide, but do not determine start times or final decisions. Next, we'll be moving on to hierarchy. Bangladeshi culture's hierarchical system is a prime example of the cultural dimension of power distance. In Bangladesh, which is considered a high power distance culture, subordinates rely heavily on superiors and their decision making. Once a decision is made, it is rarely, if ever, put into question, and the reputation of the superior is highly respected by the subordinates. This also emphasizes Bangladesh's high uncertainty avoidance. High uncertainty avoidance concerns resistance to a change and innovation and dependence on rules that ultimately contribute to the hierarchical structure. So in Bangladesh, an elder's word is most likely the final word. Pakistan is very similar to Bangladesh in the hierarchical society, also making it a high power distance culture. When decisions need to be made, elders are sought out and deferred to for this very purpose. The paternal style of management stretches beyond the workplace and encompasses their care for the employees, who are often treated like a family. When decisions are made in the Pakistani business culture, the most intelligent decision is often chosen over the most liked decision. So they have a high business decision model over the exact decision that might be favored the most. Moving on to India, they also look to the person with the most authority when making their decisions. They're a high power distance culture as well, and they rely on the hierarchical structure to conduct business. When making these decisions, past experiences are looked upon to guide which paths to take. If something has worked historically, it is likely to be chosen again. Indian executives also heavily invest in their employees more than their Western counterparts. Employee performance and development is at the top of their priority list by providing regular feedback and constructive criticism. They work to create a sense of social mission that is served when the business succeeds. They make aggressive investments in employee development despite tight labor markets and widespread job hopping. They strive for a high level of employee engagement and openness in order to best fit their companies. Alright, moving on to gift giving and etiquette. It is appropriate to be 15 to 30 minutes late in India, which is the opposite of Americans who take great pride in being punctual. After arriving at someone's home, it is customary to remove shoes either outside of the home or by the door prior to entering. Due to their hospitable nature, guests will typically be offered chai tea or a cold drink. These gifts should not be refused and should always be accepted. It is common practice for the guests to compliment their host on their hospitality and bring a small gift of appreciation. In India, there are certain gifts that should not be given due to certain religions, such as alcohol, leather, or anything made from animal byproducts. Hindus are vegetarians, and anything coming from an animal would be deemed inappropriate. Even flowers need to be vetted prior to giving them as a gift because different flowers have different connotations. Avoid frangipanis or any white flower as these are used for funerals. Any gift can be wrapped in the colors of yellow and red as these are considered lucky colors in India. Men also need to be aware of gift-giving protocol. It is advised that men also state a gift is from himself and his sister, wife, or mother when giving a gift to another woman. If not, it is seen as a flirtatious gesture which is not appropriate when conducting business. Moving on to Pakistan. When visiting a Pakistani home, always praise the host's home, and if there are children present, engage with them regardless of their age. If not, it is seen as an egotistical and disinterested to the host. It is not customary to bring a gift for a new acquaintance, but it is customary to tip the household staff. Now, this may not be as common in lower income housing. Household staff members are extremely important to upper and middle class society, and not tipping them would be considered rude. Keeping in line with Indian culture, alcohol should never be given as a gift in a Muslim household. Anything edible that is brought to a Muslim household must also be prepared to halal standards, which means it is religiously acceptable under Islamic law. When gifting in a Pakistani household, always gift with two hands or only the right hand. It is not socially acceptable for a man to gift a woman. Finally, Bangladesh. They can be impatient when dealing with foreigners, and inviting them into personal homes is not common. An invitation to lunch is more commonplace in Bangladesh. When being served, guests will be served first, followed by the eldest. Although guests may have their food first, the eldest should always eat prior to a guest eating. It is also common for people to eat with their bare hands. However, it is not seen as rude if someone asks for utensils, so don't hesitate. Gift exchanging is also not as common in Bangladesh when dealing with business transactions. If a gift is exchanged, there are some general rules to follow. For example, gifts are always given with two hands, and it is considered impolite to open the gift in front of the giver. For the Bangladeshi culture, the thought of the gift takes precedence over the cost or the value of the gift.
Anytime a foreign business executive treads an unknown territory, much research and care should be taken to ensure a smooth business transaction. To guarantee this, executives should research common business practices, communication methods, etiquettes, and religious practices to show their counterparts that knowing their culture is important to them and their business. It moves beyond a business transaction and gets to the heart of knowing the people that a business is working with and respecting their cultural values, morals, and customs. We feel as if these are some of the most important topics for a foreigner who is going to be trying to make a good initial impression and also remain culturally respective to the native land when conducting business. After reviewing these points, we feel as if a listener will be readily prepared to take on the business world in Southern Asia.